Hello everyone, and today I'm going to be counting down my top 5 best and worst Spirit Halloween years of all time. Alright, so, I guess we're just gonna get right started here. So first of all, let's start with the good ones, because this list, it was very hard to compile for me, but I think I've kind of narrowed it down to what I personally think are the best and the worst. So, yeah, let's start with the positives. Okay, so the best. Number 5. For the best Spirit Halloween theme, or my personal favorite, I am going to say that it is 2013. So I know this is one that people are going to be a little bit mad at me for, because I'm not putting 2013 at number 1, but I just feel like while 2013 was a really, really good year, and it had some really good props, I don't think that it deserves anything above top 5, because while that year was really cool in terms of the clown train, that was about it. The Haunted Mansion, in my opinion, was pretty lackluster. It had some decent props in there, but overall, it just wasn't really the most creative theme. I liked the Spirit Asylum. I thought that was a really good theme that was very creative, but I also just think that one didn't help it be any higher. I think Spirit Clown Train is really one that helped it a lot, but I don't think that one is enough to put it anything higher than number 5. Alright, what about number 4? Number 4 is 2016. So I know that you guys are gonna kind of kill me for putting 2013 below 2016, but again, this is just my personal opinion. I felt like 2016's themes were more creative than 2013, and the props in that year were decently on par with a lot of the props that 2013 gave us. So yeah, obviously, it didn't have 3 themes like 2013 did, but I think that the Clock Tower and Haunted Hotel were 2 really creative ideas. I think that the props that went in them fit decently well, except for in the hotel. I don't think everything there fit, especially Morning Glory and Rising Reaper of Death. I think those could have done so much better in the Clock Tower, because that has much more of a graveyard aesthetic, and then I think they could have maybe put just the attack spider in the hotel, because that still would have fit decently well. But unfortunately, they didn't, which is why it's not quite as high up on the list. But overall, I felt like that theme was decently creative, and I thought that it worked very well, which I'm very happy about. That was the first year that I actually got to go to Spirit in person, because I had looked through the windows previous years, but my family would just go to a Halloween store near us that has unfortunately closed a gazillion years ago since we moved. But so we never really got to start going to Spirit until 2016 on, and then I've gone every year. But 2016 was a pretty good first experience. Although my store was kind of weird. They had a lot of leftovers, which is cool. They had Incinerator, Shotgun Blast Zombie. I'm sure there are a couple others that they had that I'm forgetting about. But they had those kind of put on the stairs where you would walk up to it, because it was a very big store. And it was really cool, except for that they also put Lunging Pumpkin Carver on the stairs. And I just totally walked by her because, one of her flaws is she's decently quiet, and her eyes don't light up. There's no indication that she's going to do anything, so unfortunately, didn't really get scared by her. But, yeah, overall, pretty good theme. Alright, number 3. Now we're getting into some very, 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 kind of tight squeeze top 3 of them. So these are ones that I really, really like. Alright, so, number 3 for this one. And also, I'm kind of trying to stick to ones that I've either seen very comprehensively on video or ones that I went to myself. Because otherwise, I don't know, I just don't think that, I'd be qualified to give an opinion on them. So for number 3, I am going to have to go with 2012. So this one, in my opinion, was a really, really cool one. You had the House of Horrors, you had the Spirit Valley Farms, and the Terror Mill, and I think those were all themes that worked very well. That year we also had some real gems, like Jumping Zombie. I know that one, I feel like that one's kind of underrated, because I don't see it talked about a lot, but I still think that it is one of the coolest props we have ever seen from Techie in terms of the jumping props, because I feel like it was very creative and fit well, and the soundtrack fit decently well. But anyway, going off track here, you also had the original Limb Ripper that year, and you also had Wolf Spitter, which was one that I really like. You had Mean Old Gramps. You had so many cool ones that year. You had the, oh god, I'm forgetting the name. It was the Jemmy Ghost Girl? Yeah, Ghost Girl, there we go. Jemmy Ghost Girl. You had Rising Reagan. So many cool ones. Then you had the Poppin' Goblin, which was, that's an interesting one. That's one that, to be honest, maybe I'll just do a whole freaking video, not a whole freaking video on, but maybe a little snippet of a video on, just because he's a very interesting props in terms of how easily he breaks and how easily he also starts smoking. Very weird prop. But anyway, so what about so obviously, well, yeah, that's about all I have to say about that theme. I think it was a really cool theme that had some really, really gems in there, and I'm a massive fan of it. Alright, number 2. So this is where we're really, really getting into that kind of tight squeeze of, like, these themes, they aren't ones that I just like, kind of like, they're ones that I absolutely love. Alright, number 2 is 2014. So this one is one that I've seen so many mixed opinions on, because there are a lot of people who are diehard fans of it, and then there are a lot of people who hate it and think that this was the year that Spirit started turning. And I do agree that this was the year that Spirit did start turning a little bit to the very modern era of it, but I don't think that it was quite very modern Spirit. I think it still had a lot of gems that were very reminiscent of the older modern Spirit era. Because I consider modern Spirit from like 2010-ish on, because that's kind of when they really started implementing themes and things like that. But yeah, so 2014, this is one of my favorite years. It would be at top 1. It's a very close second to what I'm putting at top 1 here. But I just think that it was such a cool year. I think every theme except for the Ruins was done really well. I think the Ruins they could have done so much more with, and it just felt kind of half-slapped together. But other than that, I think every theme worked really well. Broken Spine Girl is a prop that I absolutely love. She's one that I have in my collection, and even though she was very faulty, I still think that she's one of the most creative ideas 2014 gave us. You also had Barnyard Butcher. Rosemary, she was remade, but she's still such a cool one in that sense. You had Harvester, who I feel like, it seems like when I look at videos of it, not every location had him up, but it seems like a good amount of them did. I mean, you just had so many cool props. In my opinion, my favorite theme that year was probably the Attic, which is something that a lot of people are going to be very confused about, because, like, why would I choose the tiniest little theme in that year? But I think the Attic was something that they should really revisit in, like, a walkthrough sometime, because I think attics are such a kind of creepy thing, and there's something that you can do so many things with and be so creative with it. So I really do hope that we get a bigger attic theme sometime, but I think that the way that they did it, pretty much every prop fit. I think Coat Rack Monster was a really creative one to put in there. I really liked that section with Peekaboo Penny, Broken Spine Girl, and Lunging Lily. There were just so many cool ones, and Possessed Wall Hanger I feel like also fit really well. So yeah, 2014, definitely number 2. Alright, number 1. This is one that I feel like everyone is gonna guess that I'm gonna say it. Like, you really just can't make a Spirit list without putting this somewhere on it, And most people put this at number 1, and I'm gonna have to too, because it's just such a cool one. And that is, wait, drum roll, you guessed it, 2011. 2011 was a year that, in my opinion, is one of the best years, not actually just the best year Spirit has ever had in terms of creativity, and one of the best they've had in terms of props, because, like, it's just insane how cool these themes were. Zombie Wasteland, love those fans that they had in kind of the background of Twilight Twitcher and Flesh Eater. I believe, yeah, flesh-eating zombie. Then they also had that dripping slime effect in Zombie Wasteland, which I loved. I thought that was a really cool looking one. Then they also have we got the, I believe it used to be called like it's Vampire Cemetery or something, I think, but now we got confirmation that it's actually called the Vampire Mausoleum, which I personally think is such a cool theme. I feel like that one really embodied kind of a classic cemetery-esque type thing to it, and I think that really, really helped add on to that year so much. Then we also had the Zombie Baby Swings and the House of Horrors, which I don't even know. Those were, wait, why? Yeah, it's called House of Horrors again. I just realized that. I never even knew that. Well, I guess we're all learning something here, but I promise you guys that the House of Horrors this year was, yeah, way different than the House of Horrors we saw in 2012. That is so weird. Dude, I never even noticed that. What the heck? But this House of Horrors had Scream and stuff in it, which I personally think is such a cool one. Definitely one that I think for sure did help, and I think that it helped add on to the theme just because we had like the Scream effect, which I absolutely loved. It was just overall such a cool one, and definitely one that I am 100% going to pick. Like, maybe I'll pick up Scream if I can find him. I don't know though. It's hard to say. I'm not gonna say anything yet for that, because Scream's one that I really like. But I just don't know if I'm going to pick him up, because he's so expensive nowadays, and you usually find him broken, but he is a really cool one, so maybe I'll pick him up if I can. But anyway, back to the video here. So yeah, that was my countdown for the best Spirit years. What do you guys think of that? Do you think, was I right? Was I wrong? What are your opinions on that one? What are your personal favorites? Let me know in the comments down below. Now, it's time for the worst. So this section is going to be shorter because I don't really have as much to say about the worst ones, except for they were pretty uncreative and bad. So, yeah. Let's just get right into it. Okay, number 5 for the absolute worst themes Spirit Halloween has ever had. This one, everyone is going to kill me for, but I'm just going to say it because I'm sorry not sorry here. 2020. Now, this theme, I know this theme has so many diehard fans, but I just feel like this theme was not that good. I think I hate the whole island theme for haunts because, again, it can be done really well, but Spirit didn't do it well at all. It was kind of like the SS Riptide and Reaper's Wharf, where they were just like, let's just throw in these there, that'll work. It didn't work at all. Jack's Cave, or Reaper's Island Cave, whatever you want to call it, I call it Jack's Cave, was a really, really cool theme, but unfortunately, because of COVID, they couldn't have a walkthrough, and obviously, I respect that decision, and I think, gotta stop the spread, but I still think that they could have made that theme so much better, because it's so tiny. But, I still think 2020, it isn't one that deserves anything higher than number 5 on the list, because they did their best during COVID, in terms of the walkthrough portion that they usually have in the back, that they had to scrap this year. But, oh, whoops, dropped my phone, sorry. But, other than that, I just think that I just think that it didn't work that well. I mean, the props didn't fit, and most of the props were lackluster. Like, you had some gems in there. Like, I feel like the Hauntress was a good prop that I kind of wish I would have picked up that year, but I never did. But she's hopefully going to come back this year, so maybe I can pick her up then. But then you had Harvester of Souls. Love that prop. One of my favorites. I have him. Love him. So cool. Yeah, but that's about it. That is about it for that theme. I just feel like it was lackluster and could have been done better. But still, not the absolute worst theme Spirit has ever had. Alright, we are moving on. What is next? 2018 is number 4, sorry. It's the second one I'm doing, but it's the fourth out of 5. But, I just feel like, again, this theme was it was done better in terms of coolness in the back theme. It did better than 2020, but I just feel like it was so generic. Like, the island theme, I'm not a fan of, but at least they had a little bit of creativity in there. This one, it was just nothing. I mean, there truly was nothing here in 2018 except for the walkthrough that was cool. Everything else was just generic farm-themed stuff. You had some gems in there, but overall, I think it was very lackluster and could have been done so much better. In terms of the front theme, I think the back theme was done decently well, but I still think that they could have put just a little bit more work into that walkthrough to make it better. And I know that a lot of people, I still think that was better than 2019's walkthrough, and I know that a lot of people are going to kill me for that, but I just feel like it still wasn't that great. It was very lackluster, and while I do think that the screams at the end of that walkthrough were a nice touch, they didn't add enough to it for me to say, oh yeah, that theme is, not deserving to be on the worst list, but it's not that high up, so still not my least favorite theme, but not my favorite either. Alright, we are moving up even higher on the list to number 3. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, theys and thems, we have 2017. And I'm sorry, but I just can't. I just don't know why they didn't add so much more to this theme. This is one that I feel like a lot of the things I've picked on here have been controversial. But 2017, come on. You really, really couldn't have thought of anything better. Everything that year was so lackluster. The bridge display was cool, but I thought that okay, first of all, I just want to say this. I think Area 31 was definitely a saving grace for that theme. I think that display was really cool. But that doesn't account for how bad the bridge display was. It was a cheaply done mediocre display that just wasn't that good. The props in it fit, but that's just because you can get anything to fit in a bridge. It just doesn't make sense for that. And while Area 31 was cool, it isn't enough to save that theme. Really, all I have to say about that theme is that it wasn't good, and it could have been done better, but they just decided not to. Alright. Number 2. Alright. You guys, I'm sorry, and I know no one's gonna agree with me for this, but I'm just gonna say it. 2019. 2019 was... I just hated that, because, first of all, nautical themes I'm not a big fan of. I think that some haunts do it really well. Shout out to Ascend the Clown Haunter for doing an awesome nautical theme in his haunt for 2020. But I think that the way that Spirit did it was terrible because there were no sea-themed props. You don't see... it would literally... They might as well have called it Clown Boat, because you don't see clowns and scarecrows and stuff in ocean themes, and same with Reaper's Wharf. There were more clowns. Demonic Dahlia could technically have fit, but she could fit pretty much anywhere. I don't know. All I have to say about it is that it was very lackluster, and obviously, that year for me, too, was not a great Halloween, because where I live, there wasn't rain, which was very lucky, because everywhere else there was rain, but there was a very slight amount of snow on the ground, kind of off to the side of my yard, which kind of showed it was so cold that year. I mean, I don't think we've ever had a year that was that cold for Halloween here. It was freezing cold. Like, it's normally in like the 50s in Halloween's, maybe even the 60s sometimes, like in 2020. But that year was in like the low 40s. I don't know. It was so freaking cold. It was just not a great Halloween. And while that doesn't affect me picking 2019, I also just want to say, not a great Halloween. But moving on from that, we have the number one. This was one that I picked that I think was so forgettable and so just that it really, really was bad. And truly, I think that the one way that kind of sealed the deal for this one being picked is me completely forgetting what the themes for this year were until I went on the wiki. Ladies and gentlemen, you might be able to guess what I'm going to pick, or you might not. It is 2015. 2015 was so forgettable. Alright? The themes that year were creative, but they just weren't done well. I felt like all the props that year were forgettable and lackluster, except for like Smoldering Zombie, Flaming Black Widow Witch, and then like Shotgun Blast Zombie. I felt like those were the only props that year that weren't just forgettable. And I liked Incinerator, but I don't think that he fit that well. And every prop that year that was good besides the three that I just mentioned were just reruns. Like, the quote-unquote new props that they had that year were just so bad. Like, I just can't even with how terribly they were done. Like, you had the Harbinger of Hell, which it was a forgettable prop that you would see at like CVS or Home Depot, pretty much. I don't know. I just felt like 2015 was a forgettable year with forgettable props that didn't really work that well. But that's just my opinion. Obviously, I'm sure there are a lot of diehard fans of this theme out there, but I am not one of them. So yeah, seriously, thank you all so much for watching. If you have your own opinions on this, make a video of your own or put it in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching. And bye.